A white nationalist website sparked controversy in the wake of the violence in Charlottesville last weekend after it published a hate-filled article about one of the victims. Quickly, its service provider cut ties with the site. CNET senior editor Dan Ackerman is in New York City. So Dan, shortly after the car attack in Charlottesville that killed Heather Heyer, the Daily Stormer published an article basically saying that Heyer's death was inconsequential. What grounds did GoDaddy and Google have to cancel the Daily Stormer's domain registration?
When you do business with pretty much any tech company, you sign on to what they call a terms of service, which is this very long agreement. Nobody ever really reads it, but in there are often clauses about what you can do as a customer of that service, and they often bar you from promoting hateful speech or anything illegal. Everyone has their own list, and you can look through that and find a reason to get rid of pretty much anything that's on the border.
Well, we've seen other tech companies like Facebook and YouTube grapple with how to deal with controversial content on their platforms. How does this latest incident move that debate along?
This is something that we've seen kind of a groundswell in over the past year, when you had especially consumer-facing social media sites like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram come to grips with the fact that they really had to address this in a more direct way because their consumers were being harassed online. And you've seen a more direct approach from them, and now it's moving into these more backbone companies like the actual domain name registrars and the people hosting the websites, rather than just social media companies taking aim at individual members.
Yeah, so give us some context. Is there precedent, Dan, for hate groups in particular losing their platforms for reasons similar to this?
I mean, we've definitely seen a lot of it over the past year or so, especially on Twitter, which has taken several prominent people and banned them, kicked them off the service for violating those terms of service, doing things like promoting violence or doxing people, giving out their personal information so they could be harassed by others. So this is something that you've seen tech companies do more in the last year or two, whereas in previous years, they wanted to be a little more hands-off and claim that they were just the carrier. They were not responsible for the content.
Well, the car attack and other violence in Charlottesville over the weekend garnered national headlines. Could that have played into GoDaddy's and Google's decisions to drop the Daily Stormer? And what kind of ethical issues does that bring up, given that these companies host millions of domains?
Oh, I mean, 100%. When you have voices coming up very loudly and saying to a company, you're doing business with this organization and this website, you need to look more closely at that. When you have a big incident like this, that gives it the publicity it needs for the company to go in and say, oh, maybe we should have noticed these guys on our own, but we didn't. Now that it's been brought to our attention, we'll address this. But that does bring up the issue of how much policing a technology company can do and should do. You see companies, especially like Facebook, like YouTube, which is owned by Google, investing a tremendous amount of money recently in developing automated systems and hiring many human watchers to go through what's happening on their networks to try to filter out objectionable material.
Well, so as of Tuesday afternoon, Dan, the Daily Stormer is on a domain host called Cloudflare. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Cloudflare is more of a security providing organization. What they did with that website is they moved it to something that people call the dark web, which is really just a collection of parallel internet you can access with something called a Tor browser and special instructions. It's not something anybody can just get to. So for right now, it's very difficult to access, but I can't say what's going to happen to it tomorrow or the next day.
All right. To be continued. Dan Ackerman, thanks so much.
Thank you.